Alright, this is 3.5 lesson part 1, and I'm probably only going to do one video for chapter 3, as graphing is something you should have already had. But in case you hadn't or you need a refresher, here we go. Now first off, we need to remember that y equals mx plus b, which is everybody's favorite equation, is slope-intercept form. So it's called slope-intercept form. Now, it's called slope-intercept form because right here in front of the x, the m is our slope. It comes from a French word meaning to mount, to climb, monter. Right? And b is our y-intercept. Right? And that's going to be our starting place. That's going to be where we start on the y-axis. Now, the other two forms, which you may not be as familiar with, the first one is called standard form, and it's written ax plus by is equal to c. And this is called standard form. Now, standard form is useful for a lot of things. Specifically in the next chapter, chapter 4, when we do systems of equations, we'll be using that one a lot as a go-to. Alright, last but not least is our favorite one, the one I use the most, especially for the exercises that we do in chapter 3, and it's called point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Right, and that is called point slope form. Now, it's called point slope form because you have your point x1, y1, and you have your slope, just like you had before, as m. Now, we use this one a lot because a lot of the times when we're trying to find the equation of lines, what they have us do is find a slope, and they want it to go through a point, so we use point slope form to do that. And even like in example 2, where on this one they give us 2 points, we use that to find the slope using an equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I'll write that in a second, to get the slope, and then we can use either one of these points and use that to find our equation. So, first and foremost, find the equation line parallel to the following: 3x minus 2y equals 12, and passes through 1, 2. So the first thing I need to do is take this equation, 3x minus 2y equals 12, and get the slope. The easiest way to get the slope is to rewrite this in slope-intercept form. In other words, I'm going to get the y by itself. So I'm going to move the positive 3x to the other side. So that becomes negative 2y equals negative 3x plus 12. And then I'm going to divide everything by negative 2. And I'm left with y equals positive 3 over 2x minus 6. So this is an equivalent equation. This is the slope-intercept equation versus what I started with in standard form, 3x minus 2y equals 12. And whatever's in front of my x is my slope. So the slope that I have to be parallel to is 3/2. Now, just so you know, parallel means m1 equals m2. In other words, my new slope that I'm going to use has to match 3/2. Now, I have to have this slope, and I have to pass through that point. In other words, I can use point slope form to do that. So, I know point slope form is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So y1 is going to be 2, x1 is going to be 1, x1, y1. And my m is 3/2. So I have y minus 2 equals 3/2 x minus 1. Alright, so from here, I want to write it in slope-intercept form because that's standard. I'm going to distribute the 3/2 and then add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to get y minus 2 equals 3/2 x minus 3/2. Then I'm going to add 2 to both sides to get y is equal to 3/2 x. Let's see, 2 plus 3/2 is going to be 1/2. Alright, so that's the first part. Now, down here, for example 3, they want us to convert it to standard form. Well, if I want this to be in standard form, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply everything by 2. I'd end up with 2y equals 3x plus 1. And then I'd move the x to the other side to get negative 3x plus 2y equals 1. Hey, look, it's in standard form now. That was slope-intercept form, and that's point-slope form. So anytime you have a line, you can write it in a couple different ways. All right, now let's do example 2. We have the points 8, negative 4, and 5, 5. I need to find the slope, and the slope is always equal to the difference of the y's, so y2 minus y1 over the difference of the x's, x2 minus x1. So that's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. They're always in alphabetical order. The first point gets my 1's, the second point gets my 2's. Alright, so I have 5 minus negative 4 over 5 minus 8. In other words, I get 5 minus 4 becomes plus 9 over 5 minus 8 is 3. In other words, negative 3. I get negative 3 is the slope. Now that I know the slope, I can use either one of these points and plug it into point-slope form to get the equation in point-slope form. Y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1. Plugging in the information I have, I'm going to use this for my x1 and y1. I like the 5's better. There's no negatives I don't have to carry. And my slope is negative 3. So it's going to be y minus 5 equals negative 3, x minus 5. To get it in a slope-intercept form, I have to get the y by itself, distribute the 3, add 5 to both sides, and now we have it in slope-intercept form. This was point-slope form, and now if they wanted me to put it into standard form, just move the x over so that everything's a whole, so I get 3x plus y equals 20. So yeah, anytime you have an equation, you can always rewrite it to match what you want. If it's standard form, make sure that the x and the y's are over on the left and the numbers on your right. If it's point slope, just match it. Generally we use this one when we're trying to find the equation of a line. And then slope intercept is probably the one you have the most practice with from high school. Sorry, let's move that down. Y equals mx plus b.